I've been recording my gameplay of Final Fantasy on the NES Classic Edition. It's one of 30 games that came with this miniature version. One of the reasons I did this is that the battery on my physical copy is dead and no longer holds a save file. However, it was pointed out to me in the comments that there are some animations missing in the NES Classic version. A detail I forgot since I only beat this game once on the NES about 20 years ago. So, to make sure we don't miss anything moving forward, I cleared the game on the original hardware without turning off my NES, and I will show these original clips whenever there is a deviation. We were told by a character in Crescent Lake that the ice cave contains the floater, north of Crescent Lake. But if you look at the map here, you can't get to the ice cave by canoeing north from Crescent Lake. We have to get on the boat, take that north to the next dock, and then take our canoe through those northern rivers in order to get to the ice cave. So that's where we'll be heading next. And remember that you can dock your boat at a port, but you can also dock it at the mouth of a river and start canoeing right away. Now here's another argument in favor of the thief, and it's going to be a weak argument, admittedly. When encountering enemies, you'll notice that sometimes an enemy attacks you first as an ambush, and sometimes your party gets a preemptive chance to strike first. Well, this is the formula that the game considers when deciding whether a battle is normal, an enemy ambush, or your party gets to strike first, and it's based on the party leader's agility and luck, along with some other factors. Because it adds this up and then divides it by 8, the party leader's agility and luck isn't that significant for most of the game, but still, the thief has the highest luck than anybody, and it also has the potential to have the most agility out of everyone as well. So if you use the thief as your party leader later in the game, it's going to be helpful in avoiding ambushes and increasing the chance that your party will strike first. Now here's a bug about using houses. If you choose not to save your game after using a house, it will not recharge your mana points, but it also saves your game before it recharges your mana points. Which means that if you die after using a house, you'll get sent back to your last save without full mana points. What I like to do is use a cabin after using a house to ensure that my maximum MP is saved. Here in the ice cave, we're going to be doing a lot of bouncing back and forth between 3 levels. We need to get to the hole at number 19, but it's walled off from the entrance area, so we'll have to just follow the path around to the stairs at A that lead us down to level 2, another linear path to get to the stairs at B that lead us down again to level 3. Just this little room we go from B to C, which will take us back upstairs to level 2. And here we will have some access to treasures, but those treasures are not that good. The fire sword is not as good as the ice sword that we already have, but we'll fall down a hole that takes us to number 5, get into a forced encounter, and then make sure you pick up the treasure chests, at least the ice armor, on the way to D, which will take us past level 2 all the way up to level 1, where we can get a few more items, including the ice shield. And then either leave at 22 to recharge, or fall down the hole at 19, which takes us back to number 20 at level 2. We get the floater from the treasure chest at 21 after defeating an enemy, and then we have to fall back down the hole to level 3. Follow the path to D, go up the stairs past level 2 to level 1, and then make our exit out at number 22. Now I have called this friendly NPC music, but this is not a friendly NPC cave. Most of these enemies can be dispatched quickly, even the ice dragons, although beware that they have a group ice attack. Have a ice ready. But these two guys are trouble. The mages and the sorcerers both have instant death attacks. Later in the game, you'll be able to resist the mage's attacks because there is an item that resists rub. But at this point, it's likely not worth it to fight them. The sorcerers, however, are trouble throughout the game. They have a group paralysis attack, and then their normal physical attack can one-shot a character. Just attack them, and they're dead. Even at the end of the game, when our party is fully decked out with the best gear, we will not be able to resist that one-shot death attack from the sorcerers. And you know, thinking about that, when I was a kid, running from battle was something that I did because I was bored of fighting. Then when I fought a boss and I was easily defeated, it taught me not to run. And for a long while, I decided I would never run from a fight in a Final Fantasy game. But in this game, running is a legitimate strategy. Some of these monsters are just built different, like the sorcerers, and running is the best decision. Now you'll notice the sorcerers look like the wizards that we've already fought. There are wizards in this ice cave as well. They're going to be a lot easier because our levels are a lot higher, but we still can't run from a wizard fight. It's also good to portion out your mana points appropriately in the ice cave. There are a lot of undead enemies that attack you in groups. Harm might be better than fire because fire can be used against ice enemies, and then harm can work against the undead enemies. That strategy of fighting may help you to stretch your abilities out a bit. And as we mentioned, the flame sword is not as good as the ice sword because of the weapon bug. It would make fighting against ice enemies more effective, but not so in this game. I skipped a fight there, but you do have to fight a group of undead when you walk out of that room. Now we're going to fight the ice dragons. I wanted to show you this fight on the original NES hardware, but on that playthrough they ambushed us and used Blizzard twice, which killed half the party before I even had a chance to do my first turn. So I'll show you the fight on the NES Classic. The ice dragons normally aren't that hard to defeat. They don't have a lot of defense, they don't have a lot of hit points, so as long as your white mage can get A-ice off the ground first, they're really not that threatening. And then you can take them out with physical attacks or fire attacks, or they are also vulnerable to lightning. Notice how much less damage Blizzard does to us now that we have A-ice on the party. Now you may look at the weapon bug and think, that's kind of lame, not to be able to attack with fire when we get our flame sword against the ice enemies. But here's something else to keep in mind. This bug also negates something that would put us at a disadvantage. The game was designed for your characters to have an elemental weakness based on the element of the weapon they are equipped with. So if we have the ice sword equipped, it would make us vulnerable to fire. And if we had the fire sword equipped, it would have made us vulnerable to ice. So it's not all bad having that weapon bug. Now, like we said before, armor is not bugged, so the ice armor is going to be a good decision to equip on our fighter during our trek through the ice cave. But we are not going to get rid of our flame armor. Both the flame and ice armor will stay relevant for a while yet. A monster guarding the front of a chest will always be there every time you step on that floor. Now later in the game, you will get these pro rings. Pro rings will guard your party from rub attacks. So you could, if getting frustrated with this cave, just go straight to the floater, and then once you get the pro rings, come back in order to pick up the rest of the treasure. Chests in this room contain a lot of money, except for the top right chest, which is guarded by frost wolves. It does not contain that much money at all. A little over 100 gold pieces. And so you'll see me picking up these treasure chests and then stopping and thinking, is it worth it to fight these frost wolves for that little bit of money? Is the completionist in my brain going to win out in my desire to pick up every chest in the game? I know that if I walk around to the left and then the underside of these treasure chests, I can pick up this nice bit of money without having to fight the frost wolves. But do I really need that last chest? Yes, I do. The Frost Wolves can have a devastating effect on your party because they each will attack you with a group frost attack. But if you cast a ice with your white mage, it will help, and then Fire 2 takes them out pretty quickly. We're going to use Fire 3 just to make sure the job is done. These are actually the enemies that you want to see if you are utilizing the Peninsula of Power earlier in the game. You would go ahead to Elfland, get a ice and Fire 2, and then come back to the Peninsula of Power and look for these guys. Now imagine the party without a ice and each of these Frost Wolves attacking us with the Frost attack. It can take your party out very quickly. Underwhelming. Now the Pro Rings that we mentioned before are actually an abbreviated name for Protect Rings, and you see the Protect Rings throughout the Final Fantasy series. Most of the time, the Protect Rings do offer resistance against instant death attacks. On this floor, we will find the Ice Shield. This will be beneficial to have, especially now, but we're going to end up having an Ice Shield and a Flame Shield, and then Ice Armor and Flame Armor. So you can equip one character with one of each, an Ice Shield and Flame Armor, or vice versa, to give them resistance to both elements. Now remember, the stairs in this room lead you out of the cave, and maybe you want to go outside and recharge. But keep in mind that when you do use those stairs, you will have to start this cave all over again. Our armor inventory is full, and we could hold on to the silver gauntlets to sell them, but the enemies are dropping enough gold as it is, and we do not want to drop the flame armor. So we'll give up the silver gauntlets in order to obtain the Ice Shield. I used up a lot of resources on this run through the ice cave to get all the treasures, so I'm going to go outside and recharge before going back to get the floater. But we're also going to do a little experiment while we're here. I've recorded how many battles we've had with Shal as leader through the ice cave, including how many were enemy ambushes and how many times our party got to strike first. We're going to make this next pass through the ice cave with the Thief as our party leader. We're going to track the battles and then see how many ambushes and how many preemptive strikes we get then. We already got all the treasure chests, so we're going to skip right ahead to the hole that drops us right in front of the chest to the floater. Now we have to be careful here. The enemy guarding the floater uses an ability called XXXX. It will definitely one-shot any character that has less than 400 hit points. That's why we put Shal back in the party lead, because he's the only one that has over 400 hit points to survive the attack, and the party leader position has a 50% chance of being targeted by the enemy. Hit the eye fast and hard in order to take him out quickly. Now, in addition to Quad X, I will also use a variety of status effects, including Stone. He will also use Lit too. So it would be a good idea to have a lit on the party just to be ready for that. Now we will see who I targets with that quadruple X one-shot. He attacked Omaru. At least we got fast on our fighter, so he can attack beefily. Nope. Our fighter has been turned to stone, so now it is up to Miko and Cow to finish off the enemy guarding the floater. Good thing he had a little bit of hit points left. Be sure not to step away from the treasure chest before you grab the floater, or you'll have to fight Ai again. Now we can drop down the hole, do a little party recovery, and then work our way back to the exit. The obligatory fight to get out of the room. Now as we turn this corner, we've got trouble brewing. Attacked by mages. And it's interesting to note, mages have a 71% chance of surprising your party in this cave. But they did not surprise our party with our thief as party leader. Coincidence? Or did the thief's luck and agility play a part? Whenever we go up against mages, I like to set 2 people to run, have Cow throw up a lit just in case they use a lightning attack on us, but Rub is going to be their first attack most of the time, if not all of the time. And then a level 3 elemental attack can one-shot each mage. And now our party gets a preemptive attack. Something that I wonder regarding that formula on who strikes first or whether it's just a normal start to battle. When the game computes the formula, does it add the party leader's agility and luck before or after it subtracts the enemy surprise factor? Because if it adds the party leader's agility and luck after it subtracts the enemy's surprise factor, then I think when the thief's luck and agility reaches 80 when added together, then we will no longer have ambushes by enemies when he is party lead. It's something that I want to test later on after I clear this game. Level up the thief until his luck and agility equal 80, and then I'll go over to the infamous Melmond area. The shadows there have an 86% chance of surprising your party. So if I go in there with a thief whose agility and luck equal 80 and get into a few fights, even if they surprise the party one time, that will confirm to me that the formula calculates the party leader's agility and luck before it subtracts the enemy surprise factor. But now that we've come out of the ice cave, we have the opportunity to compare how many fights the fighter got in as party leader, and how many fights the thief got in, and how many of those fights for each were preemptive or an enemy ambush. And what will we do with this data?
I don't know.
Now, as I've said before in the primer video, you do not need a guide in order to clear this game. But at this point in the game, I could understand that it would be difficult to know what to do with the floater, unless you apply the age-old staple of RPGs.
Talk to everybody.
So here is how things may go for someone playing without a guide. Let's just say that you've gone through the ice cave and you've been turned to stone a few times. You've used a few soft potions. There's only one town that has soft potions to restock, and that's Elfland. If you go to Elfland and you talk to the NPCs along the way, you will encounter one particular elf that tells you exactly where to go. So we head south of Crescent Lake in order to find a desert. Now this elf was supposed to say something different when you first talked to him in the original Japanese text, when the elf prince is sleeping. He said that he was a prophet and that something would be revealed to him when the time is right. If that's what he said in the NES American version, then you would have known to come back periodically to talk to him. But now we see one desert south of Crescent Lake. We're going to head over there, and instead of getting to it by passing through Crescent Lake, we'll just go to the mouth of this river right next to the desert, step into the sand, and then use the floater from our menu. One of the 3 top moments of any Final Fantasy game is when you finally get the airship.
The world is not anymore the way it used to be. No.
The whole world is open to you. You can go anywhere.
That's what I'm talking about!
The sky's the limit.
Be connected!
At least that's the feeling that's conveyed. But what you need to be aware of is where you can and can't land. You cannot land in towns. You cannot land in forests. And even though we found the airship in a desert, you cannot land in a desert. You can't land in marshes, and you can't land on top of mountains. So you will need 2 types of ground, green grass or open fields, in order to land your airship. Now before we head north, we're going to go into Cardia and do a little recharge. And the next place that we're going to head to is the Northern Continents. And it's technically a side quest. You don't have to go to this particular place in the Northern Continents in order to beat the game, but it will put you at a disadvantage on the last level if you don't do this side quest. We're going to head for the Northern Continents and the little stretch of islands that run between the 2 continents. These are the Cardia Islands. There's a nice bit of items to be found in the Cardia Islands. Here is a map of where these items are located. But the king of the Cardia Islands can be found in the island with 2 entrances. He's going to be in the lower entrance. That will be our next quest objective. As we head to the Northern Continents for the first time, here are a few new enemies. The red ankylos are going to be a major pain. They have high attack and high defense. I would treat them like a boss. In the days when the rot began and the light of the orbs dimmed, the dragonfolk lived on the peninsula east of the Cardia Islands. But a legion of fearsome monsters swept down upon the castle from the north, and such were their numbers that the dragons had to flee. We are back to a friendly NPC cave, and this string of islands is really a town. A town of dragons. And it seems like we're getting a lot of money from these treasure chests and our adventures through the previous caves, but believe me, the prices of upcoming equipment are going to skyrocket. Taking refuge in the islands west of their ancestral home, the dragons found safety. However, they also began to know fear. Longtime fans of the Final Fantasy series will recognize that name. Bahamut is one of the OGs. Seeing the fear in his people's eyes, King Bahamut looked for a way to instill courage in his people, a courage that would be needed if the new forces in the world were to be held at bay, and so he devised the Trial of Courage. Once summoning enters the picture in Final Fantasy III, we mainly see Bahamut as a summon, but finding him is always a momentous event. Another reference to the prosperous civilization that has since fallen into ruin in the north. Now you may notice the shape our next quest begins to take. We're going to have to go and find something, could be anything, to prove our courage to the Dragon King. Always leading from the front, Bahamut was the first to undergo the trial of courage. Alone he traveled to the castle that once was his home. Alone he entered the gate and, fighting loathsome creatures at every step, made his way to the throne room high on the 3rd floor. This is the long walk down the hall of the Dragon King's abode. With limited resources, I think the developers did a nice job creating the majesty of Bahamut's court. So Bahamut tells you to bring proof of your courage back to him. But if you're playing this game for the first time without a guide, you have to talk to all of the dragon folk in order to find out exactly where to go to get this proof of courage. Within the throne room of what once was his home, Bahamut hid a token in a treasure chest, then fought his way back to the islands. In the days and years that followed, any dragon or any man who sought Bahamut's support was required to seek proof of his courage in the castle. Well, we already have. So the dragons once used to have business dealings with other races. This plot point is reused in Final Fantasy XIV's Heavensward story. Notice where we land next is the second of the 2 types of ground you can land the airship on. This was always a cool idea to me that was used in the Final Fantasy games, interacting with creatures and races other than humans, enlisting their aid and assisting them in one way or another. Now on our walk to Castle Ordeals, here are some new enemies we will encounter. And beware that the sandworm casts Quake, which is a group instant death attack, so you'll want to take him out quickly or even run from battle. Now when it comes to getting to Castle Ordeals, in our last video we noted how we can take our boat and exit the boat by canoe to that river very close to Castle Ordeals, but we can't land the airship nearby. What we are going to do is a more organic way, the way that I'm assuming was intended by the developers to get to the castle. There are 2 places where you can land your airship. This one here in this clearing, and then the tip of the wing on the west side of this Hawk continent. You can go through the forests and the marsh from here, or you can go over past that desert to the east. I like to go over here to the east because I get to walk through every type of terrain, and I like variety. Have you noticed how in this northern continent we have new enemy designs, but also by this point we have seen a few familiar enemy designs recolored, given a new name, and more fearsome abilities than its earlier self? I like that in Final Fantasy games. The combination of enemies we've already seen coming back in a new variation, as well as totally new enemy designs all together as we enter new areas. I think it's cool, and it helps to keep things fresh. There's an old man waiting for us as we enter. That's the crown that we retrieved from the Marsh Cave for the Dark Elf. And the only thing of interest on this floor is the throne room in the top left corner. After the first floor, there's only 2 floors to the Castle of Ordeals, and on this first of the 2, the 3s show you which teleporters to take to progress through this area. On the second floor are a few treasures and 2 forced enemy encounters, one when you enter the room and one before you get to the throne. Here are the enemies that we will run into. The man-cats are the big trouble here. Like the Argoyles from the Fire Cave, they will cast Fire 2 in groups. These 3 enemies each guard a chest, a room, and the throne. Now we step into these little columns that will teleport us around the second floor. Whenever you have a choice of 2 columns, here is a little tip. Always pick the lower column. That will keep you moving forward. If you pick the wrong column, it will send you to an earlier part of this maze. Now in the top right corner of this room is a treasure that you don't have to take from here. In my second video, Setting Out, Randy Robbins observed that there are certain treasures that can be found in 2 different locations in this game. So because we're going for this treasure chest, which contains the Zeus Gauntlet, on the next floor there will be an empty treasure chest. But if we left this chest alone and just went to the next floor, that particular empty chest would have contained the Zeus Gauntlet. And in that case, we would not have had to fight the mud golems. Now these mud golems, they like to cast fast on each other so that their already heavy hit can multiply against your party members. You can see a reference to this treasure location in the Pixel remaster of this game. The chests that we're fighting the mud golems for only contain a potion in that version. You have to go to the next floor in order to get the Zeus Gauntlet. And in the Marsh Caves as well, some treasure chests are empty according to the Nintendo Power Guide. Other treasure chests are empty according to Mike's RPG Center. It just depends on which treasure chest you open first. And I'm sure the Pixel remaster makes a reference to this because this treasure chest that we're about to open is more decorated than the second treasure chest, which makes it odd to find just a potion here. Now we have a difficult decision to make here because our inventory is full and I do not want to drop the flame armor or the ice shield. So I'm going to take a piece of inexpensive equipment that someone is already wearing and drop that. After we get out of here, after we get our class upgrades and Miko can equip the flame armor and the ice shield as a ninja, then I'll replace that cheap piece of armor we dropped if we need to. The Zeus Gauntlet is an invaluable piece of gear because it will allow you to use it in battle to cast Lit 2 without using any mana points, and the character that you give it to does not have to equip it. It just has to be in their inventory. It will become a staple of future battles. There is an enemy guarding this room. As soon as we enter it, we will get into a fight, and it's a variation of the Mad Pony, the Nightmares. The Nightmares have high evasion, but they are vulnerable to ice. But you can attack them with physical attacks. Make an attempt and they will likely connect. But this is how to use the Zeus Gauntlet in battle. Go to your items menu and select it. And then Omaru will hit them with ice attacks just to make sure we are being effective. There it is, Lit 2. So now Miko can attack enemies with a group attack using his Gauntlet instead of a single attack that isn't as good as the fighters. Alternatively, we could have given the Zeus Gauntlet to Cow so that we have a fourth person doing decent damage at no cost to MP. This treasure chest contains a second piece of equipment that will become a staple of our battles. The heal staff can be used as an item, same as the Zeus Gauntlet, in order to freely cast heal on the party. So whenever Cal isn't doing anything battle-wise, we will have her use heal to keep our character's health up. There is both good treasure and useless treasure coming up in the remaining chests in this room. This one here isn't a necessary treasure, but I like to take all of the treasures from each area. But in one of the other treasure chests here is a gold bracelet, which will be invaluable armor for one of your mages. Dropping another piece of inexpensive gear in order to open that treasure chest. The ice sword will be good for our ninja once our thief upgrades. But since Miko is not a ninja yet and we did give up some of his armor, we're going to give him that gold bracelet to compensate for what we have dropped. For now. This is the treasure chest that would have had the Zeus Gauntlet if we didn't already get it from the last floor. We have reached the prize of Castle Ordeal. Stepping on the throne will exit the castle altogether, but we have one more enemy to battle in order to do so. The zombie dragon is an undead monster, so it is weak to both fire and harm. The Zeus Gauntlet may also do a little bit more damage than the thief's physical attack at this point, so that's what we'll have Miko do. The zombie dragons are heavy enemies, but they're not too terrible. Keep in mind that their attacks can cause paralysis, but other than that, your strongest attacks will take care of him relatively quickly. Now let's take our tail of the rat and hightail it out of here. We'll do a little rest and recharge, and then we'll make our walk back to the airship and head back to King Bahamut. Since we needed the crown to access Castle Ordeals, it makes me wonder if the Dark Elf was hoping to prove his courage to Bahamut somehow, so that he could gain a boon from Bahamut. Or maybe he was intending on taking over the Castle of Ordeals and using the crown to do so. In fact, could the crown have belonged to Bahamut originally, and that's why it allowed us to gain access to the castle? I'm sure I'm just speculating on something that the fans of this game have already deciphered. It's time for another one of my top 5 moments in a Final Fantasy game, the class change. And just look at how the upgrades are conveyed. Our fighter has now become a knight. Our thief has now become a ninja. our white and black mages have become white and black wizards. Now, if you had a monk and a red mage in your party, they would have upgraded to Master and Red Wizard. But look at Omaru's design though. The Black Wizard is my personal favorite of the upgrades, just by its aesthetics. And here is what each character looks like as they walk around an area. Now, these upgrades do not contain major improvements as far as your stat growth goes. Your stat growth is mostly the same. But now the black and white wizards have access to higher level black and white spells. The knight can now use certain white spells, and the ninja can use certain black spells. The party is also able to equip some higher end gear as well. But you can beat the game, like we said before, without accessing these class upgrades. The disadvantage that it would put you in is the only way to exit the final level is to use the white wizard's exit ability or the black wizard's warp ability. If you don't have either one of those spells, once you enter the final level, you are committed until you defeat the final boss or are defeated yourselves. Now at this point we can finally equip Miko with the flame armor and the ice shield, giving him a resistance to both of those elements. We'll also equip him with the Zeus Gauntlet for now. All of these giving him significantly better defense than his previous gear. Now here's something else to take note of. If you've brought a monk to be upgraded to Master, he is actually at a disadvantage when he becomes a Master because his magic defense that increases by 4 per level as a monk actually falls to 1 per level after he becomes a Master, which I'm pretty sure is a bug. But now, before we do anything else moving the story forward, we're going to backtrack to the towns where we can pick up the lower level white and black abilities that our knight and ninja will eventually be able to use. It's going to take them a couple of level ups to start building up mana points. And this is the way it works for them. Every odd level, they will increase all mana slots by 1 to a max of 4. For the knight, he can cast level 1 through level 3 white mage abilities, and then for the ninja, he can cast level 1 through level 4 black abilities. We're going to start with the black and white abilities in Conaria. But before we do, we're going to visit Conaria Castle. In the Japanese text, and subsequently in the Pixel remaster, the king mentions how the princess is always worried about you. But Princess Sarah says something about you staying with her, and then she says never mind, acknowledging that you have work to do in the big picture. Her little sister also mentions the Warriors of Light as her big brothers, saving her big sister. So Conaria seems to have a special bond with the Light Warriors. But now I would like to show you the Invisible Woman, once known as the Invisible Man. Notice that there is a square I cannot walk on top of. Coming around looking to the left and looking up, interacting with this square, someone will speak to you. So what is this? Well, notice how when we go into a room, the outside NPCs disappear and the inside NPCs are revealed. The Invisible Woman was coded as an inside NPC, but she was placed outside a room. So if we had the ability to walk through the walls of Queen Jane's room after opening that door, we would be able to see the Invisible Woman. Now you might say, well, can't we just walk around to the back of the castle and go through those rooms that were locked by the Mystic Key? And that does seem like it would be an easy way to see the Invisible Woman, especially since she would be within view of the one room to the left. But notice how when you walk into those rooms, the outside NPCs do not disappear. So the doors that are locked by the Mystic Key don't flip that switch, so to speak, in the game's coding to make the outside NPCs disappear and the inside NPCs appear. So the only way to see the Invisible Woman is if you were able to walk through the walls of Queen Jane or the little princess's room. But anyway, back to business. We will take a rest at the inn and then begin collecting our black and white abilities. In this video, our party has been significantly upgraded. We now have the airship, and our classes have improved so that multiple characters can cast white and black abilities. We also have items that will allow us to cast Lit 2 and Heal on the party without using any mana points. We will now continue our journey of returning the light of the orbs. Our next stop, Gaia, the Eye of the Hawk.